um, how to think about child like development, how to think about other things like how to youth really think about programs that are interesting to them as well. And so I just was there for like 5 years. Part of the time I was doing programs, and then I ended up becoming the chief operating officer over there. The reason I became the chief operating officer is because I complained about how everything was run. And so when the chief operating officer left, they were like, well, why don't you take the job then and you fix it? Okay. So sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for. So I did that for an additional 2 years while I was there as well. And then really one day, out of nowhere, I received an email from a recruiter who said, hey, we have this position available at the Chicago Bulls. Would you be interested in applying for it? And again, this was one of those times, like a lot of times we get asked, when you get to start different senior levels, you start getting recruiters reach out to you for different opportunities. And a lot of times it's sort of thinking, is this something I would really take advantage of? Is this something that's going to really help me or not? And usually I told people no, because a lot of times it wasn't anything that I was interested in. But when this opportunity came up, I knew that, like, again, there's only 30 teams that are out there. And to head up the community engagement, the community relations, the social impact, whatever you want to call it, department for a sports team, especially an NBA team, those positions are rarely open. They rarely happen. And so I knew it was an opportunity that I had to, of a lifetime, that I had to take advantage of. And so I had 5 rounds of interviews with the Chicago Bulls. And I do have to say, this is probably the first time that I've had, every time I had an interview, I always felt really good about it. I didn't have any issues. I knew how to answer all the questions. Of course, I prepared a lot, but I knew how to answer the questions. I knew what they were sort of looking for. I knew how to think about how to do really good work in the community. And so I spent that, I spent a lot of time preparing, but also having I had really great interviews. And it was like, it felt good. Every single round I had, I'm like, this feels good. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm prepared for this. I've prepared my whole life for this, really. And so, and even like my final interview, which I interviewed with Michael Reinsdorf, who I know you all spoke with, Jerry Reinsdorf last year, his son, who runs the team now. I met with him and had a great conversation. And it was just one of those things where it just felt like it was right. And it felt like everything I've ever learned in my entire life, I use in this job. I still do. You'd be surprised with the craziest things that I've ever had to learn in my life, I have to use in this job. You have to be really, really resourceful to do this job. And so that's, I think, something for all of you to think about as well. Always think about when you're all the things that you need to pull in, and don't be afraid to pull in the good experiences and the bad experiences that you have from work or from school, whatever it may be, because you'd be surprised what you need sometimes with a lot of these jobs. But yeah, I pull in a lot. You have to be really creative as well. And I think when people think creative, you think artistic, and it's not that. I think a lot of times we think of how can you be creative with different like solving problems or addressing different issues that are happening in the city, and do it in a way that no one else has done it before, or do it in a way that can make a lot of really cool connections for people, but also help a lot of people as well. And so this job is what I do for the Bulls. Okay, so what is it that I do every day? So I'm overseeing community engagement. And so that's sort of like 4 sort of areas that fall into it. One of them is just straight community relations. So that just means anytime the Bulls organization is in the community doing stuff, if that's supporting a program, if it's volunteer work, if it's all kinds of things, if it's like giving supplies, giving donations and stuff like that, that falls under that section. And then I have player appearances. So when players make appearances, our current players, when they make appearances, we have to manage that. And we organize that all throughout the year. And then former players, so players that used to play for the Bulls, we still manage a lot of them when they come to town, or some of them that we have on payroll. We manage them and making sure that they're still doing a lot of activity. Then the final category is the Chicago Bulls charities. And so that's our foundation. And so I oversee all of the grants that we provide in the community as well. So that's fun. Get to give money out, which is always great, but you try to make sure that you're smart about it. You can ask all these fine people at the Herondorf Family Foundation. They know how to be smart about their money as well. But thinking about who and how you're giving your money out, which is always really, really great. But since I had such a strong background in programming before, a lot of times I can notice if a program is doing a good job or not doing a good job. And so it's been great to be on that side of the work that we're doing as well. That was a lot. I'm going to take a breath. Corey, what do you think? What should I do? Anything else I
Oh,
need to
that was
touch on?
that was amazing just to hear your story, just to hear what you have shared thus far and the work that you do. So I'm actually, before I ask any questions, I just want to move it over to our scholars who've been listening intently. Like, what are some of your questions? What are some of the big things you think about when you think about someone that's VP of like a team like Chicago Bulls? Any questions?
I got one. When you was talking, you was basically like mentioning like all the challenges that you've been through, you know, trying to get to where you are now. Was there like something or like someone that like motivated you to like to keep going? Because I know you said that you had people that gave you like that luck, but like when you was like in college, because you was juggling like a sorority sports and then like school itself, so just like because some people in college be juggling like school, personal life. So what is your like advice to us since you said that one day you gonna be our luck for us, just like HFS is our luck. So what is your luck for us like when we juggling problems in college?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I mean, sometimes with college, you're like, how am I going to get all this done? Like, how am I even going to like do anything, like get anything done? And a lot of times it feels like a lot of times you get in college, I feel like there's a big FOMO thing as well, where you look around and you feel like everybody else has got it figured out and everyone else has got it together, but nobody has it figured out. Just trust me, they do not. But I think it was helpful for me. I mean, again, I went to school with my twin sister, which was great. But I also would probably found some of my lifetime friends that I've ever had when I was in undergrad as well. My great friends. And I'm actually funny this weekend, actually on Friday, I'm leaving to go back to Syracuse University because I'm going to be getting an award there. And some of my friends are coming back, which is fantastic. I'll get to see them again. But I think part of it too is like finding some of your true friends that are there that are really willing to be helpful and that you can be honest with. I mean, I think it's hard. A lot of times we always want to act like we've got it all together. Um, and to be honest with you, even today, I've got bad days. I've got great days. Like I was saying earlier, I was supposed to call Megan earlier today and I forgot. I was like, oh my God, I was having a panic attack. So I think a lot of times it's just, I think the biggest thing that you can think about is like finding friends that you can be honest with, that you can be vulnerable with as well. That you can say like, I'm not doing well. I'm not having a great day. I'm like struggling over here. But also like finding some of those other people on campus who are, I'll call them the adults, even though you are all adults, but like the staff and stuff like that are helpful. And so for me, it was my coach. Again, he was someone who actually believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And so I think it's finding who are those people. There's always people at universities who can be your champions. And a lot of times we just never tapped into them. My twin sister was really close with one of her technology teachers, and I never ever like realized that I should have been talking to a lot of my professors. And so to this day, she's still close to that professor, and she always just took an interest in her. So it's like finding some of those adults, especially on university campuses, they actually really want to be helpful. But a lot of times we just don't find them or we don't ask for them either. And it's hard to find them as well. And even when I joined my sorority, it was like getting a whole nother set of friends. But you always have to weed through your friends as well. Like university is such a weird time because it's like, okay, I'm gonna get Ashanti. I'm gonna get a little nerdy here with you. When you're thinking about how your brain's developed, it's not fully developed yet, but they put you in all these really awkward situations, like move in with somebody who you've never met before, and make friends from all over the place. And everyone brings all their own issues and stuff from home, or brings all their own issues from where they come from. And you're like, this is so awkward. So it's the most awkward time, and they force all these sort of situations on you. But at the same time, you can find some of the best people that you've ever and you will find in your life. And these are friends that you can have for a whole lifetime. But I think part of it too is thinking about who are those people that you can just be honest, with, and the thing is, you don't have to have it all figured out and be perfect with it. Believe me, I have struggled a lot and I still struggle a lot. I mean, I think, part of it, Corey and I were saying this as well, like there's only 30 people in this role that I have. But there's also only so many people in sports that are female or even are Black as well. So for me, it's like I'm more of a unicorn, in so many ways. But it can be lonely, that could be lonely as well. And a lot of times you feel like you get nervous. I know even when and you doubt yourself. I doubt myself a lot. Even when I got promoted to vice president, I remember thinking, oh, is everyone going to think I only got promoted because I needed to promote somebody of color? And that's a sad thing because I know I worked my butt off. Okay, I was going to use another word, but I used my butt off. I worked my butt off, you know what I mean? To get where I am. And I kind of really did a lot of work, especially during the pandemic. And so it's sad, but sometimes you still sort of have those thoughts of doubt and things like that still creep into your mind. But I think a lot of times when I find my friends, my good friends, even like I could think of some of them who I'm so happy I'll see this weekend. They appreciate, I think people appreciate it when you're honest with them too. And they're the ones that help you get through those hard times. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You try to do everything and you want to get every experience you can in undergrad, but sometimes you're like, I can't do everything. I can't. And that's okay. Because none of us can. None of us can. They really can't. Did that help Ashanti a little bit?
Yeah, that helped. But I got another question. It's about your job. Okay, so
Yep.
we're still in a pandemic, but when the pandemic first happened, like sports really
Yeah.
stopped. So how did that affect you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because everyone with the pandemic, it almost looks like it didn't become a pandemic until the NBA was like, we're canceling the season. Then everyone's like, okay, we're stopping everything. That was kind of like the sort of the tip that sort of after that, everything kind of fell afterwards. If you remember Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz, he tested positive, and then all of a sudden everyone started like, okay, we're canceling the game, we're canceling the season. Then I think everything else just kind of fell from there as well when they realized this really is a pandemic. And so I probably had about 2 days where I was at home because everyone's like, we got to go home. And I'm like, am I going to have any work to do or what's going to happen? And then the switch flipped and I got so busy. I got so busy afterwards because I think when you think of teams, we hadn't started playing again. All sports had stopped and everyone was at home. And so they kept saying, well, if you're not doing anything on the court, what are you doing in the community? And so all of a sudden my job became the only job of the organization. And so a lot of other people did not have work to do. There wasn't the people who sell tickets. There's nothing to sell. There was the people who do retail, all the clothing and stuff. They had nothing to sell. They had nothing to do. So there's some people did not have anything to do, but I was so busy because that was where the focus became. It's well, what are you doing in the community? What are you doing to help during this time? And so, COVID ran right into the summer with the death of George Floyd and all the social justice work. And so our work just kind of kept getting ramped up every single time I turned the corner. And so we started thinking about what are the donations we're giving in the community. We play at the United Center, which is a big arena. And we said, we're going to turn this into a center for distributing food during COVID, then distributing supplies for the medical community. And then when all the with the death of George Floyd, we ended up doing a lot more work, social justice work, and changed some of our focus to make sure that we were doing that as well. So that was super, super busy. And then we went right into the election, if you remember that. And so that was a lot of other work too. We turned our whole arena into a voting center, and we did a large campaign around making sure that people were voting and really mobilizing people to vote and make sure that they were getting out there. So I was so busy, Ashanti, you have no idea. And it's funny because again, like I said, I was so busy, and from that work, because I kind of really leaned in and really took that work on, that I think, to be honest with you, probably was part of the reason that led for me being promoted to becoming one of the vice presidents here at the organization, which was great, which was nice because I felt like I did work my butt off. So it was nice to feel rewarded for that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions.
Those were amazing questions, Ashanti. Anyone else have any questions?
And Ashanti,
Yeah, I got a question.
one quick question, Ashanti. What school do you go to?
I'm at the University of Illinois in Champaign.
Okay, good job. Okay, sorry. I know somebody else was speaking.
No,
Elijah.
you're fine.
Elijah,
Yeah,
what school do you go to?
I go to Loyola Marymount University in
Yeah,
Los
get out of
Angeles.
here. I know some people that go
Yeah.
there. Are you from Chicago though too?
No, I'm from Atlanta.
There's a lot of people
Mm.
from Chicago that go to Loyola Marymount. What year are you?
Really, I'm a sophomore.
You're a sophomore? Okay. My
Yeah,
my nephew goes over there. He's a freshman though.
okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a couple of friends from Chicago as well. They're really cool. My question was, about the you say you're really, really prepared for your interview
Yeah.
for your position right now. I just wanted to know, like, what all went into that preparation, and how did you? Because I know you just mentally it's a lot just for such a big position. So how did
Yeah.
you prepare for that? Really, is my question.
Okay, that's an awesome question, Elijah. And I think to be honest with you, I interview a lot of people all the time. And a lot of times I'm like, they're not prepared. So I can see I tell when people don't prepare for stuff. So yeah, so one of the things I did is like basically take on everything, looked exactly at everything that they're doing. So looking on their website, especially on the community side, look at all the recent articles that were written about them. So I took in all of the stuff. So what are they already doing? Then I started thinking about how could I even look at what they're doing? What would I do to improve it? What would I do differently? But also thinking about what did I like about it? And then the other thing that you can do a lot of times, which people don't always do, is look at who else is doing the same work somewhere else. If it's another company, another sports team, whatever it is, how and what are some new cool ideas that you would bring to them as well. So I think, that's, some of the things that a lot of things I did to prepare for it. Then I knew, like, I look at the job description and I'm like, okay, you're looking for someone who can do this, this, and this. And then I try to remember and go through a list of what are examples of stuff that I know that I've done that shows that I've done that kind of work. Because a lot of times when you do interviews, I find people talk in generalities. Like how would you manage a team? Well, you got to be motivated. You got to do this or whatever it is. Like the people are talking generalities, but people really want is specifics. And what have you done? They always ask, like, what have you actually done? And so you say, when I lead a team, I've done it like this, and this is this is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. And giving real life examples. This is a program I created, and this is why it was really great. And this is what worked well. But they're always going to ask you about the good stuff, but they're always going to ask you about something that didn't work out well. And so know what those examples are as well, because I'm a terrible interviewer because I get nervous. And then I can't think. And then someone's asking me, and I'm like, as soon as the interview's over, I'm like, dang it, I had all these other great ideas that great examples that I could have brought up, but I didn't. And so I always like try to have some examples in front of me. And even if I have notes down, just have them in front of you, just so you just remember to jog your memory. But having examples of things that didn't go well, but what did you learn from that? Because I think that's always the biggest thing. People want to see, what did you learn from that and how did you adjust? Because at any level, anything that happens never goes to plan, right? There's always something that goes wrong, but people always want to see, like, that's okay if it didn't go well, but what did you learn from it? And so seeing that if you're honest with yourself and thinking about and the other things people always ask is like, what are you doing to improve yourself all the time as well? And so I know you guys do a lot of thinking, a lot of preparation, a lot of like reflection with this foundation. So I know you guys are actually in a lot better shape than I was, but that was the biggest thing, was like, I looked on, because when I interview people too, if I know, I can tell if they've never looked at our social media or never looked at our website and don't know anything about what we do and make a lot of assumptions. And so I wanted to make sure I was as informed as possible, but also looking what other people were doing as well. So see if there's things that you can bring to them, because there's so many people that apply for any of these positions. Sometimes when we have even a coordinator level, which is like an entry level position, we'll have like over 800 people that applicants on there. And so how do you stand out? And some positions have over 1,000 people that apply. How do you stand out? How do you make yourself known if you get to the point of getting an interview? And so those are always like super, super important. But a lot of times it's like, be clear on what can you do for the organization? What can you bring to them? And you have unique talents. You've got just like, even like your age. I know this sounds crazy, but like a lot of times, like your age and where you've gone to school and your interests and stuff like that is something that you should bring to your work all the time, because like when you get to my age, a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what's so cool anymore. Other people do know. So I need people to like I need people like that are honest, that are like that can bring that, or they can say, hey, people aren't using that kind of language anymore. People aren't doing this anymore, and so those are things that are like your advantages. You should bring them to your job every single day. And then a lot of times, even with sports jobs, a lot of times there could be a lot of times the people are like, again, sometimes they can be older, sometimes they're younger, a lot of times it can be very white. And so bring all of you to your job every day, because that's actually someone like you who's like young and cool and like a hard worker and stuff like that. I think has a lot to offer. And a lot of times I like to hire a lot of people that are younger on my team, because they're like up to date on all the best stuff, and they're up to date on what's going on, and they're like, hey, like we can't use that term anymore, we can't do this anymore. Like they know all these things that are happening. And especially like I think when George Floyd died, a lot of times people were like, let's say this, like for some sort of statement or whatever. And I'm like, you're going to get killed if you say that, if we're going to get under a lot of criticism. But someone else may not know, because they're not necessarily in the same circles that you're in. And so you see things that other people aren't seeing. So that's like, a lot of times people think that's like a disadvantage. It's actually your advantage. And you need to bring that every day when you come to work, or come to an interview as well. But always do your research, see what the company's doing, see what's the latest stuff that's out there, but make sure that you're and just look at what the competition's doing as well for them. So just be ready. Just always be ready.
Thank you. That was so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very sound advice. I love how you really shared your story about the building of power and connections. Pretty much like what happened with my life, and how on each route you end up somewhere where you never imagined you'll be. So I love how you was very transparent with that. Do we have any other questions? Go ahead, Val.
I have a question. So I'm currently pre-med, and then I'm also really just interested in public health. So my question is, do you think your background in medicine and public health was helpful, like in what you do today?
What school do you go to, Val?
I go to UCLA.
Oh, nice. Great. My twin sister actually works at USC now. So
Oh.
not the same school. I know it's different, but anyway, so it's rivals, but still. Okay. So I go out and visit her a lot. So yes, so public health is a very, very hot field right now and everything. But I think when I think about like the things that everything I've learned, I've never like it doesn't go away. It doesn't mean I'm like, just because I'm not operating on people. Some of it's got to do with like your training, your thought, like sort of like your thought process and things like that are different. So I think a couple things, like one, like I can be pretty cool under pressure, unless I didn't call Megan in the morning, then I'm not cool under pressure, but I'm pretty I'm pretty cool under pressure, because I've had people like almost die in front of me. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot about that where you're just like, okay, let me be calm. Let's be level-headed about this. So I think like my approach and stuff like that, and just even thinking about how to sort of diagnose a problem. Yes, you're diagnosing a patient that has a medical issue, but every day you're diagnosing problems, and thinking about how to sort of like adjust that and coming up with options. I think that sort of approach is, I've carried that throughout my whole career. Now, when we started the pandemic and nobody knew what was happening, I definitely had to use some of my voice that I've had for training for public health, and also in the medical field, to sort of like help not only the organization somewhat, but I think even when we had these larger calls with the National Basketball Association, we had to use that approach to say, listen, like I was like, everyone wanted to sort of address it one way. And I was like, guys, let's not do that. That's not the way you should be doing this, And I was like, I know the only person on this call has got medical training. I know that for sure. You know what I mean? And I was like, please do not take it on that way. That's a terrible approach. And that's not how we should be addressing this. And so again, never thought I would need any of my sort of like medical and public health background to in this position, but I've actually had to use it a lot, especially when the pandemics first started and people were thinking about how do we do messaging around the pandemic? How do we get messaging to communities that are probably going to be the most skeptical of the vaccine and things like that. And so I think a lot of the training and what I know from like treating patients and also the public health work I've done has definitely helped with that as well. But some of it too, Val, is just thinking about sort of like how do you kind of get through problems and solve complex problems, which with public health, it's such a cool sort of degree. Because it's like you got to think about it. It's got sort of like there's like a sociology kind of piece with it. There's a psychology kind of piece with it. There's obviously a medical piece with it as well. And there's like a really super nerdy data piece with it too, if you think of epidemiology and stuff like that. So it's a great field to kind of pull everything together. It's really medicine in action is really what it is. And so someone like you would be fantastic. I think people would love to have you, but I do have to say the clinical physicians at my medical school weren't wrong. I could still do public health as a practitioner, as being a physician. And some universities have great programs where you can actually do both together, like an MD, MPH program. I know UIC here in Illinois has one. I think Harvard does too, but there's a bunch of them, Columbia, a bunch of them that can do both degrees together. And they need more people to do those kind of to do that together, because I think there's been a big reckoning, I think, even in the medical field as well, so I think that they need more people that are like you, who are smart, bright, and can do both. I mean, you're really going to be a force if that's the route that you want to take as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The Bruin. Okay, go Bruins. Okay.
Go ahead, Megan. I think you have a question.
I do, but I don't want to interrupt if any other scholars have any questions. I'm actually going to steal this question. Prince Lawrence always asks this one, but I know he's in an exam, so shout out to him on the recording. Are there any books or like resources that you've read that you think are important, or what do you like to read, or what are ways that you sort of work your mind outside of daily grind of work to sort of better?
Yeah, so I still, so the daily grind from work, what I kind of some of the things I do is like I still run. It's different now because I'm not running I'm just running for myself now. And I can run as far or as short as I want to. I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter anymore. So, and running, I'll be the first to say, is the most boring thing out there. I absolutely know that it's very boring. But when you sort of like, it's taken me a while to kind of fall back in love with running again, because it definitely was very tired after undergrad and having to do it for school. It gets really like taxing and tiring. And so doing it now for fun is great. I also do, especially when it starts to get really cold here at Icy in Chicago, also do some yoga as well, which I'm inside, and some Pilates, which is always great. And the funny thing is with yoga, like I've been doing it for years, but I still stay at the beginner level because I'm like, I want to do it just for like the, part of it is the stretch. Part of it is sort of like the meditative parts of it as well, because I think sometimes when you keep going it for further and further advanced, a lot of times you're like trying to become a pretzel and things like that. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't need to be a pretzel. I just need to like get the therapeutic parts out of it though. But there's a big meditation piece with it. And I think I can't tell you enough like the sort of benefits of like a meditation, which is sometimes it's especially with like so much stuff coming at you. Like I've got the hundreds of emails I haven't gotten to yet. I can say that. Between that, I've got like messages, chats coming through on our Teams. We use Microsoft Teams. We have Slack, messages coming through on that. I'm getting text messages. And then I haven't even started with the social media. Be Real. I've got you got Be Real, like the coming up. I've got Instagram, then the messages that come through Instagram and the posts and everything like that. It's a lot. And it's like a lot for your eyes. It's a lot for sort of like your mind. And meditation for me has been a way of just like quieting your mind and like sort of stopping for a moment and just thinking and just sort of like just letting your mind kind of flow and just being really, really still. I think there's a lot to that. And I feel like, again, it always feels like everyone else is doing so much. Seeing what everybody else is doing is always like, gets me super anxious. It gets me super worked up. And a lot of times you just need to stop. And sometimes I find like if there's something I need an answer to, and I got to figure out how to do something, I know if I either do yoga, which usually ends in a meditation, or just do a meditation, I know the answer will come to me. So a lot of times it's just like stopping and sort of being very, very still with your mind. I haven't done tons of I don't have tons of time to do a lot of reading. I do read when I do have time. I read like Malcolm Gladwell, super nerdy stuff. But I also listen to podcasts sometimes. It's a little bit easier sometimes for me and just for my schedule. But the good thing with podcasts is like, again, you don't need your eyes. You can just listen, which is great. So it's another sort of sense, you're sort of different, looking at your senses a little bit differently because like, again, your eyes are like so overworked these days. So it's great just to have that.
And I know we have a short amount of time. I just have one more question because it's a theme that keeps coming up with a lot of our speakers is this, I think there's this idea that from past generations that you have one job your whole life from the start to the end, and there's really only one opportunity to get it right. And we're really finding that a lot of our scholars and a lot of ourselves are wanting to change constantly the work that we're interested in and what we think we're good at or can add value. There seems to be this pinnacle moment where you finally were able to make this jump. If you could look back and tell yourself something or advise yourself something to make you have done it faster or easier without some of that fear, what would it have been?
I don't know if I'd want to do it any faster. I think sometimes we've got to, or doing it without, without fear. I mean, fear is okay. It's a natural emotion, and so that's okay. I think part of it is like always going on this journey as well to you learn from all of this. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from all the things that you've done. But I think we've got to be really not be so hard on ourselves all the time. Because I think a lot of times we want to get somewhere really, really quickly. And there's experience, you can't, there's nothing that like you can't beat that. I think that's like more than anything, experience tells you a lot of things. It tells you how to you can't be in some of these roles and do these things without experience. And so I think you got to think about, if you think of your life in 10 sort of years of 10 chunks, 10-year chunks, your 20s, like you're in college, your 20s and stuff, that's really for you to sort of try everything out, explore different things, think of what are all the, like, try everything out. You're like, hey, I thought I wanted to be in hospitality. I wanted to be in medicine. I wanted to do this. Try all those things out in your 20s. Your brain doesn't really develop until you're 25, and start thinking about, what you should be thinking about is getting towards 30 years old. Once you get to 30, you should have that idea of where you kind of want to be and start to get yourself in those positions in your 30s. When you're 30s, get yourself in that sort of, in that industry, in those sort of roles that you want to be. And that's what the 30s are for. And start to gradually kind of move up, the ladder. When you get to the 40s, that's when you start thinking about, as Corey said, it sounds really sinister, but this idea of like amassing power, it's not this sort of sinister power thing that you think of, but it's sort of thinking about what are those more senior roles that you can, do, that you're getting, that you're sort of really advocating for yourself to get these really to get promotions, not only financially, but also position wise. And so by the time you're 50, you're really almost an expert at what you're doing, and that it cannot be denied that you are an expert in that area then. So just think of your life in those kind of chunks like that, which is, I think, really helpful. But I think you have to be kind to yourself. Everyone needs to be a lot more kinder to themselves, and they think that they need to be further along than they are. And a lot of times there's different opportunities, different luck, different things that'll happen for you. And I think it's just taking advantage of that. But a lot of times you'll be surprised when you look at a lot of people and it looks like they have it all together. You don't understand all the things that they fell down on all the way up there. And sometimes your path isn't going to look like this sort of like upward path. You have to sometimes go up, go back, then go back up again. A lot of times I tell people, they don't realize, when I came to the Chicago Bulls, I took a big pay cut. And a lot of times as women, a lot of times we think that our salary has to completely be going up all the time. Now, I'm not saying you need to sort of always compromise that, but I knew when I took this position that even though I was taking a pay cut, that I was gonna get more out of it later. And I've already moved up the ladder and moved back up to where I was before. And so I'm already ahead of where I was. So, and sometimes I've interviewed people, they said, well, I can't do that because you're not going to pay me as much as I was getting before. I'm like, sometimes it's okay to take a step back, to take a step forward as well. So I think it's not always going to be this nice linear progression all the way up, especially if it's for the right opportunity that speaks to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. The kids were coming back, Megan.
Yeah, definitely, Adrienne. At this time, we just want to really thank you for really engaging us this evening, because you really laid out some very strong points, and I feel like it was, as Tanya just dropped in the chat, really solid advice to take our scholars to the next level. At this time, I'm going to ask Cass to close us out with a few words.
I just want to say thank you for coming and talking to us, and just also being a support for HFF and listening to all my crazy ideas of how we could be working together, and you know, the longevity of our partnership. And we're so grateful to have you representing, you know, the Bulls and stuff like that, but really our relationship was with you. And so it starts with the creation and the idea. So thank you for making this all come to life, because we're so grateful for all of our scholars and everybody just being a part of this journey. So we feel at the HFF that, I know you're a part of our family, and thank you for sharing your story. And thank you to all of our scholars for participating again. I know it's a busy time, but this was really amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, it's great. And then Corey and I were already scheming. So for whoever's in Chicago, we will see you guys after the holiday. We've got some games, so we want to host you guys at a game for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you guys. Love you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.